Hi, this is your host. This is Dinosaur 101, and in this episode we're going to talk about fossils. So let's jump right into it with a dramatic reveal of some kind of Jurassic sauropod fossil. There they are, a dinosaur from long ago. We can see that its leg is the size of my torso, and that just gives you an idea of how massive these dinosaurs really were. Now this is a famous specimen, the largest dinosaur ever found. It was discovered in Patagonia in 2014. It's nicknamed the King of the Dinosaurs. It lived about 76 million years ago, and it grew to be over 131 feet long. That's around 40 meters. It weighed 69 tons or 63 metric tons. And if you think that's impressive, its neck alone was as tall as a 3-story building. To give you another sense of scale, here's a human being next to one of its vertebrae. It's pretty hard to imagine anything more awe-inspiring than a creature like this roaming the earth. Even after all these millions of years, all that remains are bones. But from those bones, we can still learn so much. We can identify the shape of its skull and its overall body plan. We can estimate how it moved, how fast it could run, how long it might have lived, and even what it sounded like, all from its skeleton. And we don't only have the fossil of this sauropod skeleton. In some cases, we have the fossils of their footprints. These are fossils of dinosaur tracks. They preserved in stone, and in this case, they even show clear evidence of the animal that made them moving at a quick pace. We can also tell that this particular dino was walking uphill, because as it took each step, more of its foot was visible on the rock, and more of its foot was in contact with the rock. It had to lift its foot higher in order to keep it out of the shadow cast by the one in front of it. But sometimes there's more. Sometimes the skin gets fossilized, too. Here's a piece of dino skin. No, not a print or an impression left in the mud, but real skin, complete with scales. What's crazy is that this fossil comes from the same genus as the famous Sue and Scotty, but it lived 68 million years earlier. It's amazing to think that something so big and powerful could once have been alive. All these fossils offer us a glimpse into the past, a way to understand what life was like before recorded history. And when it comes to dinosaurs, the fossils we've uncovered have taught us so much. But there are still many unanswered questions. Okay, now let's start with the big picture. What is a fossil? The word fossil can refer to any preserved remains or traces of ancient life. So that includes not only the skeletons of dinosaurs, but also their poop, footprints, eggs, feathers, and even stomach contents. Basically, if something from a prehistoric organism has been preserved in the layers of the earth, it's a fossil. But while we have quite a few examples of dinosaur fossils, it's important to remember that finding one is incredibly rare. Most of the time, when an animal died, it was quickly torn apart by scavengers. Its body would then decompose, leaving no trace behind. Occasionally, though, parts of a skeleton got lost and buried completely or even mostly intact. When these remains are discovered, they provide us with an extraordinary amount of information. For example, we know exactly which species this fossil belonged to, because it fits together with other fossils of the same type. We can get an idea of the animal's age by looking at its growth rings. If it was injured at some point in its life, we can tell because a bone will heal differently, depending on how old the animal was when it was hurt. In the case of the sauropod, we can tell it died near where it was found, because it wouldn't have survived the journey across continents without water. We can also tell that it had arthritis because its bones show signs of inflammation. Scientists can even figure out whether an animal gave birth before it died, because certain hormones stay in the body long enough to leave chemical signatures in its bones. A good fossil can tell us everything from the shape of a dinosaur's head to the strength of its jaw to the number of ribs it had. Because these specimens are so valuable, paleontologists spend hours carefully cleaning and removing rock until every part of the fossil is visible under a microscope. But while a single fossil can teach us so much, it's only a tiny slice of the story. That's because the process of fossilization is very unlikely to happen in the first place. And of the times it does, most fossils only preserve part of an organism's skeleton. It's also important to note that the fossil record is biased against soft-bodied animals, so for every T-Rex fossil we find, there are probably hundreds or even thousands of ornithomimids we won't find. Fossils also tend to concentrate in certain types of rock, so while certain places like the Morrison Formation in western North America have yielded hundreds of fossils, other places, including much of Africa and Asia, have barely yielded any. As you can see, there are huge gaps in what we know about dinosaurs, but we're constantly learning more. For example, in the early days of paleontology, scientists thought that since many fossils were found in dry places, dinosaurs must have lived in deserts. Today, thanks to more discoveries and better technology, we know that most dinosaurs lived in forests, swamps, and other lush environments. The thing is, while we have plenty of information about what dinosaurs looked like and how they lived, we have almost no idea what they sounded like. No notes or recordings from the Cretaceous period have survived to modern times. Instead, all we have are educated guesses based on the anatomy of dinosaurs' skulls and their relatives today. So in 2023, paleontologists used computer modeling and the structure of a juvenile Tyrannosaurus skull to estimate what the animal may have sounded like. Using a program called ComSol, which models how sound moves through solids, they simulated how vibrations would move through the dinosaur's head and create sounds. They concluded that Tyrannosaurus likely had a low-pitched, rumbling call, kind of like a lion or a tiger. So now we have an idea of what a T-Rex might have sounded like, but we still have no idea what its vision was like. Did it see in color? How sharp was its vision? To answer these questions, scientists studied the eyes of dinosaurs, looking for clues that would help them understand what the animals could see. By studying the arrangement of muscles around a fossil, researchers can estimate the size and shape of the eye socket. They can then compare that to the eye sockets of modern animals and try to determine how well dinosaurs could see. Paleontologists recently learned that the ancestors of birds likely had excellent night vision and daytime color vision, but the vision of other dinosaurs remains largely unknown. So while we're learning new things about dinosaurs all the time, there are still many areas of mystery. Every fossil tells us something about what life was like in the Lacustrine period, but it's also a reminder of how little we really know. And that's okay. There's always more to discover. It's just a matter of digging a little deeper. Thanks for watching this episode of Dino 101. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you have a question about dinosaurs that you want us to answer, please send it to our email. Who knows? Your question might become the topic of a future episode.